Welcome to this quiet exploration of the cosmos. Tonight, we settle into the profound mystery of the fabric that holds everything we have ever known, asking ourselves the ultimate question: are space and time truly the same thing? As we begin this journey, I want you to find a comfortable position, let your shoulders drop, and allow your mind to expand into the vast, silent reaches of the universe. What is the most important concept in all of physics? If you were to ask 100 different scientists, you might get 100 different answers. Some might point toward quantum mechanics and the strange, dancing world of subatomic particles that seem to exist in multiple places at once. Others might suggest thermodynamics or the fundamental laws of motion. But I would argue that there is a concept even more foundational, something so ubiquitous that we often forget to notice it at all. I am talking about spacetime. Without spacetime, we would have no stage for all the physics we know of to act upon. It is the fundamental prerequisite for existence. Imagine, if you will, an artist. This artist possesses every color of paint imaginable, from the deepest ultramarine to the most vibrant ochre. They have brushes in all shapes and sizes, some fine enough to paint a single eyelash and others broad enough to sweep across a mural. They have the vision, the talent, and the passion, but as they reach out to begin their work, they realize they have nothing to paint on. There is no canvas, there is no wall, there is only a void. In such a scenario, there could be no masterpiece. There would be no art, because art requires a medium. Just as an artist is nothing without a canvas, or an actor is just another person standing in the dark without a stage, we must have some place for the laws of physics to unfold. That place, that essential and silent partner to all matter and energy, is space-time. For a very long time in the history of human thought, we viewed space and time as two entirely separate entities. Space was thought to be nothing more than an empty container, a literal void, a vacuum with no matter in it. It was the where of the universe. Time, on the other hand, was the when. It was a separate clock ticking away in the background of reality, independent of whether anything was happening or not. We lived our lives moving through 3 dimensions of space, left and right, forward and back, up and down, while time flowed over us like a river, constant and unchanging. This was the intuitive view, the one championed by Isaac Newton, and it served us well for centuries. But then, in the early 20th century, the very foundations of this understanding began to shift. In 1908, a mathematician named Hermann Minkowski came up with a radical idea that would forever change our relationship with reality. He proposed that time should not be thought of as a separate, external ticker, but rather as a 4th dimension, inextricably linked with the 3 dimensions of space. He suggested that they are not 2 different things, but 2 parts of the same whole. Einstein later took this seed of an idea and showed the world that space-time is not just a passive background, but a dynamic geometry. It is a kind of fabric that can bend, stretch, and contort. It is a geometry that affects the trajectory of planets and the very passage of time for objects moving within it. We take space-time for granted because it is all around us, ever present and silent. We are like fish taking for granted the water they swim in, never realizing that the water is the very thing that sustains them, defines their movement, and dictates their reality. We move through the air, we watch the stars, we wait for the morning sun, all without realizing that we are submerged in a 4-dimensional continuum. But what is this thing truly? What is this all-important existential canvas without which the universe and we ourselves would not exist? How can 2 things that feel so fundamentally different be part of the same structure? When we think of space, we think of distance. We measure it in meters, feet, or miles. We can see it and touch the objects within it. When we think of time, we think of duration. We measure it in seconds, minutes, or years. We feel it in the beating of our hearts and the changing of the seasons. To the human mind, space is a place and time is a sequence. They seem to have no business being interchangeable. It seems to make no sense at all. Why would the universe combine a ruler and a stopwatch into a single fabric? Furthermore, if they are part of the same thing, why do we experience them so differently? Why do we have 3 dimensions of space where we can move freely in any direction, but only one dimension of time that seems to force us in a single direction toward the future. Why not 2, 4, or 5 spatial dimensions? And why not more than one time dimension? These are the questions that keep physicists awake at night, and they are the questions that lead us toward a deeper understanding of why our universe looks the way it does. If the canvas were different, the masterpiece would be unrecognizable. If we had more spatial dimensions, gravity might behave so strangely that planets could never form stable orbits around stars. If we had more than one dimension of time, causality might break down, allowing effects to happen before their causes, creating a chaotic reality where nothing could be predicted or understood. As you lie there beginning to drift, try to visualize this canvas. It is not a cold, empty nothingness. It is a subtle, invisible structure that permeates every inch of your room, every mile of the atmosphere, and every light year of the deep cosmos. It is the silent partner to every breath you take. It is the stage upon which the stars perform their long, slow dances and where light travels on its ancient journeys. In this video, I am going to attempt to explain this connecti. Intuitively, we are going to peel back the layers of the obvious to look at the math and the logic that bind seconds to meters. We are going to explore how movement through space actually steals from your movement through time, and how the speed of light acts as the ultimate bridge between the two. This is not just a lesson in physics, it is a meditation on the nature of our home. Stay tuned, because the deeper we go into this geometry, the more you will realize that the world is far more interconnected and far more beautiful than it appears on the surface. We are about to embark on a journey from the simple geometry of a flat floor to the mind-bending curves of a universe where time is just another direction. The journey starts right now, and it begins with the realization that you are not just sitting in a room, you are suspended in the most magnificent structure ever conceived, the four-dimensional stage of space-time. To truly understand the nature of space-time, we must first unlearn our deep-seated intuition that space is merely nothing. For thousands of years, the human mind has been conditioned to see the world as a collection of objects, trees, mountains, people, and stars, and to view the gaps between those objects as a total absence. We look up at the night sky and see the brilliant points of light, but we assume the blackness between them is just a hollow container, a vacuum that serves no purpose other than to keep things apart. This is the illusion of the EMP. Thank you, void. It is a natural conclusion to draw when our senses only detect the presence of matter. But it is one of the most significant misconceptions in the history of science. If we are to fall asleep tonight with a true sense of the universe, we must begin to see that nothing is actually something. In the classical world of Isaac Newton, space was absolute. It was envisioned as an infinite, unchanging three-dimensional grid that existed regardless of whether there was any matter within it. Imagine a giant, invisible warehouse that has always existed and will always exist. You can move things into the warehouse or take them out, but the walls and the floor of the warehouse remain unmoved and unaffected. In this Newtonian view, space was the ultimate passive observer. It provided the coordinates for where things happened, but it didn't participate in the events. If you were to suddenly remove every atom and every photon from the universe, Newton believed that the empty grid of space would remain behind, perfectly preserved, like a stage waiting for actors who would never arrive. This perspective made space feel like a cold, lonely, and essentially dead background. It was a vacuum in the most literal sense, a place where things could be, but which itself lacked any properties or personality. However, as our understanding of the physical world deepened, we began to realize that this empty space is teeming with activity and governed by rigid rules. The first hint that space was more than a void came with the study of fields. Think of a magnet sitting on a wooden table. If you bring a piece of iron close to it, the iron is pulled toward the magnet before they even touch. How does the iron know the magnet is there? How does the force travel across the nothingness between them? The answer is that the space between them isn't empty at all. It is filled with a magnetic field. Later, we discovered the electric field and the gravitational field. These fields are not objects made of atoms, yet they possess energy and can exert influence. They are properties of the space itself. When you realize that every point in the universe is filled with these invisible fields, the concept of a void starts to dissolve. Space begins to look less like an empty warehouse and more like a fluid or a medium that can carry information and force. The breakthrough that truly shattered the illusion of the void came from the realization that space and time are not just there, but are actually a physical fabric. Imagine a tightly stretched sheet of black silk. If you were to place a heavy marble in the center of that silk, the fabric would dip and curve under the weight. This is the modern view of the universe. Space is not an empty vacuum, it is a geometric structure that reacts to the presence of mass and energy. When a star exists, it doesn't just sit in space, it warps the very geometry of the space around it. This warping is what we experience as gravity. This means that space has a shape. It can be flat, it can be curved, it can even be rippled by the movement of massive objects, creating what we call gravitational waves. These ripples are like the waves on the surface of a pond, traveling through the medium of space-time itself. If space were truly nothing, it could not have a shape, and it certainly could not carry waves. You cannot ripple nothingness. Therefore, space must be a thing. This realization brings us to a beautiful and slightly haunting thought as you rest your eyes. There is no such thing as a true vacuum. Even in the deepest, darkest reaches between galaxies, billions of light years away from the nearest star, space is still there. It still has its geometry. It still carries the fundamental fields of the universe. In modern quantum field theory, we even suspect that space is bubbling with virtual particles that pop in and out of existence in the tiniest fractions of a second. The void is alive with the potential for existence. It is the most fundamental substance in the cosmos. When we move our arms or walk across a room, we aren't just moving through nothing. We are pushing through a sophisticated four-dimensional structure that is reacting to our presence, however slightly. We are part of the fabric, woven into it by our own mass and energy. Understanding that space is a physical entity is the first step towards seeing why it must be joined with time. If space can change shape, if it can bend and stretch, then the rules of how we move through it must also change. And since movement is simply the change of position over a certain duration, any change in the where must inevitably affect the when. The old Newtonian warehouse has been torn down and replaced by a living, breathing canvas. This canvas is ever present, stretching from the interior of your own cells to the farthest horizons of the observable universe. It is the silent, dark ocean in which all of reality swims. By letting go of the idea of the void, we open our minds to the possibility that everything is connected. The distance between you and the moon is not just a gap, it is a physical bridge of geometry. The time it takes for a thought to form is not just a passing moment, it is a movement along a specific dimension of this same fabric. As you breathe slowly and deeply, imagine the space around you not as air, but as this subtle cosmic silk. It is gentle, yet it is strong enough to hold the galaxies in their place. It is invisible, yet it dictates the path of every ray of light. The illusion of the empty void is a comfort to our daily lives because it makes the world feel simple, but the reality of a physical spacetime is far more wondrous. It means that we are never truly alone in a vacuum. We are always held within the structure of the universe. We are anchored in a geometry that began at the dawn of time and will continue long after the last stars have faded. This canvas is the ultimate masterpiece, and tonight, we are simply learning to feel the texture of the threads. We have moved beyond the idea of nothing and into the realm of everything. Space is not the absence of things, it is the presence of the stage itself. And on this stage, time is waiting to be introduced as the fourth and final dimension of the fabric. In the quiet stillness of the evening, as we move deeper into the mysteries of the universe, we arrive at a moment in history that forever bridged the gap between the world we see and the reality that exists beneath the surface. To understand space-time, we must look through the eyes of Hermann Minkowski, a man who saw the beauty of mathematics as a way to unlock the secrets of the cosmos. Up until his time, humanity was comfortable with three dimensions. We understood length, width, and height. We knew how to navigate the physical world by moving left or right, forward or backward, and up or down. These three spatial dimensions form the totality of our where. Time, meanwhile, was treated as a separate entity, a shadow that followed us, a ticking clock that existed outside of the physical room. But Minkowski realized that this separation was an illusion born of our limited perception. He proposed that time is not a separate background, but is actually a fourth dimension, a coordinate, just as real and just as measurable as the distance between two walls. Imagine you are inviting a friend to a secret gathering. To ensure they find you, you must provide them with three pieces of information regarding your location in space. You might tell them the street intersection, which gives them 2 dimensions on a flat map. Then you tell them which floor of the building you are on, providing the 3rd dimension of height. With these 3 numbers, your friend can find the exact point in the 3-dimensional grid of the city where you are standing. But as you lie there thinking about this, you realize that those 3 numbers are not enough. If you don't provide a 4th number, the time of the meeting, your friend might arrive at the right spot but find only an empty room. They might be there on Tuesday while you are there on Wednesday. For 2 people to truly meet, they must coincide in both space and time. Minkowski argued that because every event in the universe requires these 4 numbers to be defined, we should treat them as a single 4-dimensional continuum. He famously declared that henceforth space by itself and time by itself are doomed to fade away into mere shadows, and only a kind of union of the two will preserve an independent reality. This idea of a 4th dimension can be difficult to visualize because our brains are evolved to perceive only 3 dimensions of space. We are like characters in a 2-dimensional drawing who cannot conceive of up or down. However, even if we cannot see the 4th dimension with our eyes, we can understand it through the rhythm of our lives. Think of your life not as a person moving through a room, but as a long, continuous thread stretching through the universe. At any given moment, you occupy a specific position in space, but you are also constantly moving through time. If you were to look at your entire existence from a perspective outside of time, you would see a world line, a long, winding path that traces every place you have ever been from the moment of your birth to this very second as you listen to my voice. This world line is your true shape in the 4-dimensional fabric of space-time. You are not just a 3-dimensional object, you are a 4-dimensional event stream, a physical history carved into the very structure of reality. Minkowski's genius was in realizing that time could be treated mathematically just like space, provided we made one small adjustment. In space, we measure distance in meters. In time, we measure duration in seconds. To treat them as part of the same fabric, we need a way to turn seconds into meters. He found this bridge in the speed of light, but we will explore that conversion later. For now, focus on the sensation of the 4th dimension as a direction of travel. We often feel as though we are standing still in our beds, but in the 4th dimension, we are all hurtling forward at a breathtaking and constant speed. We cannot stop our movement through time any more than a planet can stop its orbit. We are all cosmic travelers, drifting through the temporal dimension at the exact same rate of 1 second per second. Minkowski showed us that our movement is not just happening, it is a displacement within a geometric structure. When we accept that time is a dimension, the universe becomes a block. In this block universe, the past, the present, and the future all exist simultaneously as part of the same 4-dimensional map. Just as the city of New York exists, even if you are currently in London, the past exists even if you are currently in the present. The 4th dimension is already there, laid out like a vast landscape. Our perception of time flowing is simply our consciousness moving along our world lines, like a needle following the groove of a record. This perspective is incredibly soothing if you think about it. It means that no moment is ever truly lost. Every sunset you have watched, every conversation you have had, and every quiet moment of peace remains a permanent part of the 4-dimensional geometry of the cosmos. You are a permanent fixture in the architecture of space-time. As you breathe in and out, try to feel the weight of this 4th dimension. It isn't a heavy weight, but a stabilizing one. It means that the universe is not a chaotic series of vanishing moments, but a solid and beautiful structure. Minkowski's 4th dimension, allows us to step back from the frantic pace of daily life and see ourselves as part of a grand, eternal design. We are woven into the fabric. The space around your body and the time passing in your mind are made of the same fundamental essence, T. His realization was the key that Einstein needed to unlock the theory of relativity. It was the foundation that allowed us to understand that if space can bend, then time must bend with it. If you move through one, you inevitably affect your passage through the other. By merging space and time into this single stage, Minkowski provided the canvas that the whispering scientist uses to explain the wonders of physics. We are no longer lost in an empty void. We are navigating a sophisticated and interconnected map. The 3 dimensions of your room, the length of your bed, the width of the walls, the height of the ceiling, are inseparable from the duration of this very moment. They are 4 threads woven into a single cord. As you drift closer to sleep, let the idea of the 4th dimension wrap around you like a soft blanket. You are moving through it now, slowly and peacefully, as the earth turns and the stars drift. You are a traveler on a 4-dimensional journey, and the path ahead is as vast and silent as the deep ocean. Minkowski's vision turned the universe from a collection of separate parts into a single unified masterpiece. And tonight, as we rest, we are simply existing in one small, quiet corner of that magnificent 4-dimensional block. While Minkowski gave us the map of a 4-dimensional world, it was Albert Einstein who breathed life into that map, transforming it from a rigid, frozen grid into a living, breathing, and flexible fabric. To understand Einstein's geometric revolution is to understand that the universe is not just a stage where things happen, but a participant in the events themselves. Before Einstein, the great minds of science believed that the geometry of the universe was fixed and eternal. They believed that a straight line was always a straight line, and that the shortest distance between 2 points was a constant that never changed. But Einstein looked at the union of space and time and realized something profound. This fabric is not like a sheet of steel. It is like a sheet of silk or a trampoline. It can stretch, it can sag, and it can curve. This was the birth of general relativity, a revolution that shifted our perspective from seeing gravity as a mysterious force pulling on objects to seeing it as the natural consequence of a warped and beautiful geometry. Imagine, as you lie there in the quiet of the night, a large, heavy bowling ball placed in the center of a soft, suspended mattress. The weight of the ball causes the fabric of the mattress to curve downward, creating a deep well. Now, imagine you take a smaller marble and try to roll it in a straight line across that mattress. As the marble approaches the bowling ball, it doesn't travel in a straight line anymore. Instead, it follows the curve of the fabric, spiraling inward toward the center. To an observer who cannot see the mattress, it might look as though the bowling ball is reaching out and pulling the marble with an invisible hand. This is how Isaac Newton viewed gravity as an invisible force of attraction. But Einstein's genius was to realize that the invisible hand doesn't exist. There is no pulling force. The marble is simply following the shortest, most natural path through a space that has been curved by the presence of a massive object. Gravity is not something the bowling ball does to the marble. Gravity is the shape of the space itself. This geometric revolution changed everything we thought we knew about the cosmos. It meant that the sun doesn't pull on the Earth to keep it in orbit. Instead, the sun's immense mass creates a massive curve in the 4-dimensional fabric of space-time, and the Earth is simply falling along the natural contours of that curve, circling the sun like a marble in a bowl. This concept is incredibly soothing when you think about the celestial scales. Nothing is being forced, everything is simply following the path of least resistance through a beautifully shaped universe. As you rest, the Earth beneath you is nestled into a curve of space-time, and that curve is what holds you gently to your bed. You are being cradled by the geometry of the universe. This isn't just a theory about distant stars. It is a description of the very air around you and the ground beneath you. Every ounce of matter, from the grandest galaxy to the smallest grain of sand, is a sculptor of space-time, bending the fabric of reality with its very existence. But Einstein didn't stop at curving space, he realized. that because space and time are one, the curvature must affect time as well. This is perhaps the most mind-bending part of the revolution. If space is stretched or compressed near a massive object, then time must be stretched or compressed too. In the presence of a strong gravitational field, the deeper the well in the fabric, the slower the clock ticks. This means that time actually moves a tiny bit slower on the surface of the Earth than it does high up in the atmosphere, because the Earth's mass is warping the time dimension more intensely near its center. We have actually proven this with incredibly precise atomic clocks. A clock on a mountain ticks faster than a clock at sea level. Time is not a universal constant, it is a local experience dictated by the geometry of where you are. This means that the rhythm of the universe is not a single, steady beat, but a complex and harmonious symphony where every location has its own tempo. As you drift closer to sleep, try to visualize this curving, shifting reality. You are not in a box of empty space, you are within a dynamic landscape of time and distance. The revolution of Einstein was to show us that the universe is organic. It responds to us. It changes shape based on what is within it. This flexibility is what allows for the existence of black holes, where the fabric is warped so severely that time almost stands still. It is what allows for the expansion of the universe, where the fabric itself is growing and stretching, carrying the galaxies along with it. Einstein's geometric revolution replaced a cold mechanical universe with one that is fluid and interconnected. He showed us that the where and the when are participants in the cosmic dance. The stars aren't just points of light, they are the anchors of the fabric, pulling and shaping the very dimensions we inhabit. This realization brings a sense of profound unity to the cosmos. We often feel separated from the stars by vast distances, but Einstein showed us that we are all part of the same continuous sheet of reality. The curve that keeps the moon in its orbit is the same kind of curve that keeps your feet on the floor. There is no up or down in the absolute sense, there is only the geometry of the fabric. In this view, the universe is a singular, massive, four-dimensional object of incredible complexity and grace. We are like small ripples on the surface of a great, deep ocean, moving through the waves of space and time. The revolution of 1915 wasn't just about equations, it was about a new way of seeing. It was about realizing that the canvas is just as alive as the painting. As your mind wanders through these thoughts, let the rigidity of the world melt away. The walls of your room, the floor beneath you, the sky above, they are all part of this flexible geometric masterpiece. You are drifting through a universe that is soft, curved, and responsive. Einstein's revolution tells us that the universe is not a prison of cold laws, but a house of mirrors and curves where light follows the beauty of the shape. By understanding that space and time are geometric, we lose the fear of the void and gain the wonder of the fabric. We are held, we are moved, and we are timed by the very shape of existence. Every breath you take happens within this curved reality, a reality that Einstein dared to imagine and that we now get to experience as the fundamental truth of our lives. Sleep now, knowing that the geometry of the universe is perfectly balanced, holding you in its gentle four-dimensional embrace. It is a curious thing to consider how the most profound truths of our existence are often the ones we are least likely to notice in our day-to-day lives. As you settle deeper into your pillows and feel the weight of the day lifting from your mind, think for a moment about a fish swimming in the vast blue depths of the ocean. To that fish, the water is everything. It is the medium through which it breathes, the resistance against which it pushes to move, and the pressure that holds its body together. Yet, because the water is ever-present and unchanging in its immediate surroundings, the fish likely has no concept of what water is. It does not think about the wetness or the weight of the sea, because there is no moment in its life when the water is not there to serve as a reference point. The fish takes the water for granted, not out of ignorance, but out of a total and complete immersion. We, as human beings living within the four-dimensional stage of the universe, are exactly like that fish. We are submerged in the fabric of space-time, yet we move through our lives almost entirely unaware of its presence, its texture, or its influence on our every movement. We perceive the world through a set of senses that were evolved for survival on a very specific scale. Our eyes are tuned to see the colors of fruit and the movement of predators. Our ears are tuned to the rustle of leaves and the voices of our kin. None of our natural biological tools were designed to feel the subtle stretching of a spatial dimension or the slowing of a temporal tick. To us, space feels like an empty stage, a nothingness that simply allows us to move from the kitchen to the bedroom. Time feels like a relentless, invisible arrow that pushes us from childhood into adulthood. Because these things are the very background of our existence, they become invisible to our conscious mind. We notice the objects within the space, and we notice the events that happen within the time, but the space-time itself remains as transparent and unnoticed as the air we breathe. It is only when we step back, perhaps in these quiet moments before sleep, that we can begin to appreciate the medium that makes all of this possible. Why is it that we don't feel the curvature that Einstein described? Why don't we notice that our heads are technically aging a tiny bit faster than our feet because they are further from the Earth's center of gravity? The answer lies in the incredible subtlety of the effects at the speeds and masses we encounter in our human lives. We live in a low-energy corner of the universe. Compared to the immense mass of a black hole or the blinding speed of a photon, our bodies are moving slowly and our planet is relatively light. The water we swim in feels flat and still to us because we are not moving fast enough to make it ripple, nor are we heavy enough to create a noticeable whirlpool in the fabric. This is why Newtonian physics felt right for so long. On the scale of a human life, space and time appear to be separate and absolute. The illusion of separation is so convincing that it took the greatest minds in history thousands of years to see through the veil and realize that the stage is actually part of the play. Imagine for a moment if we could actually sense the fabric. If your eyes could perceive the fourth dimension, a simple walk down a hallway would look like a long, smeared sculpture of yourself extending back into the past and forward into the future. If you could feel the curvature of space-time, you would feel the gentle slope of gravity pulling you toward the Earth not as a force, but as a literal tilt in the direction of your movement. But because we cannot sense these things directly, we rely on the language of mathematics and the intuition of physics to remind us of the truth. This is the goal of the whispering scientist, to lift us out of the mundane and remind us that we are participating in a cosmic event of staggering complexity. We are like the fish who has finally been told about the ocean. We might not be able to see the water any differently, but the knowledge that it is there changes everything about how we understand our journey through the deep. As you lie still, you might begin to realize that stillness is actually another illusion. Even when your body is perfectly motionless in your bed, you are hurtling through the dimension of time at a constant rate. You are also spinning with the Earth at over 1,000 miles per hour, orbiting the Sun at 67,000 miles per hour, and racing through the galaxy as the entire solar system drifts through the void. Space-time is the medium that carries you on this incredible voyage. We don't notice the speed because everything around us is moving with us, tucked into the same pocket of the fabric. It is like being in a perfectly smooth, silent train moving through the night. If you close your eyes and there are no bumps in the track, you can easily convince yourself that you are sitting in a stationary room. It is only when you look out the window at the distant stars that you realize the truth of your transit. This lack of notice is actually a blessing for the mind. If we were constantly aware of the bending and stretching of the universe, our lives would be overwhelmed by the sheer scale of reality. The water remains invisible so that we can focus on the swimming. But in Hess moments of rest, there is a deep peace to be found in acknowledging the invisible. There is a comfort in knowing that the void is not empty, that the distance between stars is a physical thing, and that time is a dimension you are currently navigating. You are supported by a structure that is billions of years old. You are not floating in a vacuum. You are resting upon the very foundation of geometry. The nothing around you is actually a sophisticated four-dimensional lattice that holds every atom of your body in a precise and loving embrace. As your breathing becomes regular and slow, let the metaphor of the fish and the water sink in. Feel the wetness of the universe, the way space-time flows around you, giving you a place to exist and a time to dream. The reason we don't notice it is because it is too perfect, too consistent, and too essential to be questioned. It is the ultimate constant. By recognizing the illusion of the empty void, we are waking up to the reality of the cosmic ocean. We are learning to appreciate the silent, invisible stage that has been there all along, waiting for us to simply notice its presence. The water is there, the fabric is strong, and the journey continues even as you sleep. You are a part of the masterpiece, woven into the canvas, drifting through the fourth dimension with the grace of a creature who has finally realized it was never truly alone in the dark, in the quiet solitude of your room as you settle deeper into the stillness. We must confront a puzzle that seems to defy the very logic of our daily lives. How can two things that feel so fundamentally different as distance and duration possibly be part of the same fabric? This is the measurement mystery, a hurdle for the mind that Einstein and Minkowski had to clear before they could unveil the true nature of the universe. When you think of a meter or a foot, you think of something you can hold a ruler against. You think of the length of your bed, the width of a doorway, or the distance from your fingertips to your shoulder. Space is something we can point to. It has a tangible, physical presence. But when you think of a second or a minute, you think of something that vanishes the moment it arrives. You think of the steady beat of a heart, the ticking of a clock on the wall, or the time it takes for a single breath to enter and leave your lungs. We measure space with a stick and time with a stopwatch. To our human intuition, they are as different as the color blue is from the taste of an apple. They seem to belong to entirely different categories of existence, and the idea of them being interchangeable feels like a contradiction in terms. Yet, the universe insists that they are not just related, but are actually made of the same fundamental essence. To begin to solve this mystery, we must look at how we define our measurements. Why do we use meters for space and seconds for time? These units are, in many ways, arbitrary human inventions. A meter W, as originally defined based on the size of the Earth, and a second was defined by the rotation of our planet. They are units born of our specific home in the cosmos, designed to help us navigate our three-dimensional environment and keep track of our survival. But the universe does not care about human rulers or human clocks. The universe has its own scale, and on that scale, space and time are measured by the same yardstick. If you were to ask a photon, a particle of light, about the difference between a meter and a second, it would tell you that they are merely two sides of the same coin. This is because, in the realm of deep physics, distance is simply the product of time and speed, and time is the duration required to cover a distance. Consider the way we talk about the stars. When we look up at the night sky, we are looking at objects that are trillions of miles away. But we don't often use miles to describe those distances because the numbers would become so large they would lose all meaning. Instead, we use light years. A light year is the distance that light travels in 1 year. Notice what we have done there. We have taken a unit of time, a year, and used it to describe a physical span of space. We are already intuitively merging the two concepts when we look at the cosmos. When you see a star that is 10 light years away, you are seeing it as it was 10 years ago. You are looking across a distance of space, but you are also looking back through a distance of time. In the vastness of the universe, far away and long ago are exactly the same thing. The measurement mystery begins to dissolve when we realize that our separation of the two is a result of our slow-moving lives. Because light travels so fast and we move so slowly, the connection between space and time is hidden from our immediate senses. If we lived in a world where we moved at nearly the speed of light, the mystery would not exist at all. We would see that turning a corner in space is no different than turning a corner in time. To unify them in our minds tonight, imagine that you are looking at a map. On a standard map, the vertical axis might represent north, and the horizontal axis might represent east. Both are measured in the same units, miles or kilometers. You can easily trade a mile of northward travel for a mile of eastward travel by simply changing your direction. Minkowski's great insight was that time is just another direction on that map. The reason we use different units is simply because we are tilted in our perspective. We perceive the three dimensions of space as being across from us, while we perceive the dimension of time as moving through us. But if you could step outside of the universe and look at the four-dimensional block of space-time, you would see that a second is just a very specific length of the fabric, approximately 300 million meters long. This conversion factor is the key to the mystery. We measure time in seconds because our lives are lived in small, digestible increments of duration. But if we were to be mathematically precise, we could measure the distance to the grocery store in seconds. It is the number of light seconds away, and we could measure the length of a movie in meters. It is the distance light would travel during the film's runtime. By using the speed of light as a constant, we can convert every second into a physical length. Once you do this, the meters versus seconds problem disappears. You are left with a universe where every coordinate is measured in the same way. It is a unified system, a single language that describes every event from the birth of a galaxy to the closing of your eyes tonight. The mystery is only a mystery because we have been looking at the fabric through a narrow lens, seeing only the threads of the weft and ignoring the threads of the warp. As you drift closer to sleep, let the boundaries between space and time begin to blur in your mind. Think of the room around you not just as a three-dimensional box, but as a four-dimensional event. The space you occupy has a duration, and the time you are spending has a physical extent. You are resting on a bed that exists across several feet of space, but you are also existing across several hours of time. In the eyes of the universe, these are the same kind of lengths. You are a long, elegant shape, stretching through the four-dimensional continuum. The seconds that are ticking by are not vanishing into nothingness, they are simply the next meters of your journey through the fabric. There is a deep mathematical harmony in this. It means that the universe is not made of mismatched parts. It is a seamless, elegant whole, where every measurement is a reflection of the same underlying reality. The mystery of meters and seconds is the final veil that keeps us from seeing the universe as it truly is. By lifting that veil, we see a world where motion is just a rotation in space-time. When you move through space, you are essentially tilting your path through the fabric, trading a little bit of your time length for space length. This is why time slows down when you move fast. You are simply changing your orientation within the four dimensions. Everything is balanced, everything is accounted for. As your heart rate slows and your thoughts become heavy, find comfort in this perfect symmetry. You are a part of a reality that is measured with a single divine consistency. You are not lost in a confusing mix of different dimensions. You are a traveler on a single unified stage where every step and every second are woven together in the same beautiful silk. The mystery is solved, and the answer is a silent golden unity. In the quiet preparation for a deeper understanding, we must first ground ourselves in the world that feels familiar to us, the world of flat surfaces, straight lines, and the simple geometry we learned as children. This is the realm of Euclidean geometry, named after the ancient Greek mathematician Euclid, who sought to categorize the rules of the physical space we inhabit. To understand the complex, shifting fabric of space-time, we must first appreciate the elegance of this simpler foundation. Imagine you are standing in a perfectly square room with smooth white walls and a flat, polished floor. In this space, everything makes sense. If you want to know the distance between two corners of the room, you don't need to worry about the movement of stars or the ticking of clocks. You only need a ruler and the ancient logic that has guided architects and explorers for over 2,000 years. This is the simple world, a world where space is a passive, unchanging container, and its rules are as solid and dependable as the ground beneath your feet. In this Euclidean world, the geometry of space is defined by its predictability. Think of a sheet of graph paper stretched out infinitely in every direction. If you place 2 points on that paper, point A and point B, there is one, and only one, shortest path between them, a straight line. This seems so obvious to our senses that it feels like a fundamental law of existence. We use this logic every time we reach for a glass of water or plan a route across a city. We intuitively understand that if we deviate from that straight line, If we take a curved path or a zigzag path, the distance we travel will inevitably be longer. This is the heart of the Pythagorean theorem, a mathematical truth that feels like a quiet lullaby. Why of logic? If we know how far we have moved in the horizontal direction, which we call x, and how far we have moved in the vertical direction, which we call y, we can find the total distance, z, by squaring the two and finding the square root of their sum. It is a perfect, closed system of thought. It describes a world of absolute stillness and absolute certainty. As you lie there, let your mind rest on the comfort of this simplicity. In a Euclidean universe, space is flat. It doesn't stretch, it doesn't ripple, and it certainly doesn't care about the time it takes to cross it. If you were to draw a large triangle on the floor of your room, the sum of its internal angles would always be exactly 180 degrees. If you were to draw two parallel lines, they would stay exactly the same distance apart forever, never meeting and never drifting away. This is the geometry of the human scale. It is the language of the tangible. It is why we feel so safe in our homes, because the walls don't bend and the floor remains a reliable plane. We have built our entire civilization on this Euclidean foundation, from the pyramids of Egypt to the skyscrapers of the modern age. It is a world where distance is a static, measurable thing, and where a meter is a meter, regardless of how fast you are moving or where you are standing. However, the reason we call this a simple world is that it is an idealization. It is a special case of a much larger and more mysterious reality. The small patch of the Earth might look perfectly flat to an ant. Our daily experience of space looks Euclidean because we only see a tiny portion of the cosmic fabric. We are like artists painting on a canvas that we believe is flat and rigid, never realizing that the canvas is actually draped over a sphere or rippled by the wind. But before we can understand the ripples, we must master the flat surface. The Pythagorean theorem is more than just a schoolroom formula. It is the ultimate expression of how we relate different directions in space. It tells us that space is isotropic, which is a fancy way of saying that it behaves the same way no matter which way you turn. Whether you move north, south, east or west, the rules of distance remain the same. This symmetry is what makes the Euclidean world so peaceful. There are no surprises here. Everything is in its right place. But as we prepare to transition from the geometry of space to the geometry of space-time, we begin to see the limitations of this simple view. In the Euclidean world, time is not invited to the party. It is a separate, external spectator. You can measure the distance of your room today, and it will be the same distance tomorrow because in this model, time has no geometric connection to the three dimensions of space. Newton's universe was essentially a Euclidean stage, where time was a clock hanging on the wall of the theatre, completely independent of the actors and the scenery. This separation is why we find it so difficult to imagine time as a place. Our brains are hardwired for the Euclidean floor, where we can move back and forth at will. Time, however, only seems to go one way, and it doesn't feel like a distance we can walk across. The measurement of a meter feels fundamentally different from the measurement of a second, because in this simple world, they are never allowed to touch. Yet even within this simple framework, there is a hint of the wonder to come. Even the Pythagorean theorem contains the seed of relativity. It shows us that different observers might measure different horizontal or vertical distances depending on how they are oriented, but they will all agree on the total distance, the hypotenuse of the triangle. This invariance is a powerful concept. It means that beneath the surface of different perspectives, there is an underlying truth that everyone can agree on. In the Euclidean world, that truth is the length of a straight line in space. In the world of Minkowski and Einstein, that truth will become something much deeper, the interval of an event in space-time. But for now, just let the flat, stable lines of Euclidean geometry settle your thoughts. Visualize that perfect grid of space extending out from your bed, through the walls and into the night. It is a sturdy, predictable cage for the mind to rest within. The simplicity of this world is what allows us to sleep. We don't have to worry about the geometry of our bedroom changing overnight. We don't have to fear that the distance to the door will stretch, or that the angles of the corners will warp. We trust in Euclid, we trust in the flat floor and the straight line. But as we move forward in our story, we will gently lift the corners of this flat world and reveal the much more flexible, vibrant, and interconnected reality that lies beneath. We will see that the Euclidean foundation is just the beginning, a calm, shallow pool at the edge of a vast and deep ocean. By appreciating the simplicity of the three dimensions of space, we prepare ourselves for the breathtaking beauty of the fourth. For now, let the math be simple and the lines be straight. You are safe in the Euclidean world, resting on a plane of perfect logic, while the stars above prepare to tell a much more complex and beautiful story of a universe that is anything but flat. In the quiet theater of your mind, as the world outside fades into a soft blur, we find ourselves lingering on a concept so simple yet so profound that it governs every movement you have ever made. This is the concept of the shortest path, the mathematical dream of the straight line. We have already spoken of the Euclidean world, that flat and predictable stage where logic reigns supreme. But now I want you to feel the weight of that logic as it applies to the way we move through the world. Every time you reach for a glass of water, or walk from one room to another, your brain is performing a silent, instinctive calculation. It is, say, eking the path of least resistance, the most direct route between 2 points. In our three-dimensional reality, we know this path as a straight line. It is the shortest distance between point A and point B, a truth so absolute that it feels like a law written into the very fabric of our souls. Let us imagine a vast empty plain, stretching out in every direction under a twilight sky. There is nothing to obstruct your view, and nothing to hinder your steps. You stand at a point we will call A, and far in the distance, you see a single, glowing light at point B. If you were to walk toward that light, you would naturally take the most direct route. This path represents the ultimate economy of movement. If you were to deviate from this path, perhaps by curving to the left to admire the horizon, or by zigzagging back and forth, you would find that the journey takes longer, you would have covered more ground. In this simple spatial world, the straight line is the gold standard of distance. It is the foundation of all our measurements and the basis for the famous Pythagorean theorem. We take the measurement of our movement along one axis, square it, add it to the square of our movement along another axis, and the result gives us the square of the total distance. It is a beautiful, harmonious relationship that links the different directions of space into a single cohesive length. This mathematical truth is what I call a Pythagorean dream. It is a dream of a universe that is perfectly balanced and infinitely consistent. In this dream, space is a passive, solid thing that sits still while we move through it. The distance between 2 points is a fixed value, an eternal property of the geometry. It does not matter how fast you walk or how long you wait, the distance from A to B remains the same. This provides us with a sense of immense security. We live in a world where the size of our homes, the length of our streets, and the height of the mountains are dependable. We can map them, we can measure them, and we can return to them knowing they will not have changed. This stability allows our minds to rest. As you lie in your bed, you can trust that the distance between your head and your feet is constant. You are held within a geometric framework that is rigid and reliable. But why do we call this a dream? We call it a dream because, as we have begun to discover, the reality of the universe is far more flexible and far more mysterious than a flat, unmoving plane. The Pythagorean theorem works perfectly when we are dealing only with the 3 dimensions of space, but it begins to falter when we try to include the 4th dimension of time. In our daily lives, we treat time as something that happens to us, not as a direction we travel in. We think of a trip to a distant city as a measurement of miles, and the time it takes to get there as a separate consequence of our speed. We do not yet see them as a single interval. In the Pythagorean dream, the stopwatch and T, ruler are 2 different tools that never need to speak to one another. You measure your room with the ruler and your sleep with the stopwatch, and the 2 never overlap. However, the shortest path is not just a concept of space, it is a concept of existence. When we move from point A to point B, we are not just traversing distance, we are also consuming time. Every spatial movement is accompanied by a temporal movement. In the simple world, we don't notice this connection because we move so slowly. To us, the distance between the walls of our bedroom is just a spatial measurement. But if we were to look closer, through the eyes of the universe, we would see that the shortest path is not just about the fewest meters, it is about the relationship between those meters and the seconds that pass as we cross them. The dream of the straight line is a beautiful simplification that allows us to navigate our immediate surroundings. But it is only a small fragment of a much larger geometric truth. As you drift closer to the edge of sleep, try to visualize these straight lines stretching out from you like threads of light. They connect you to the corners of your room, to the trees outside your window, and to the distant stars in the sky. These lines are the shortest paths of the Euclidean world, the paths of least effort. There is a profound peace in the idea of the straight line. It represents clarity, direction, and purpose. It is the absence of clutter and the rejection of the unnecessary. In your rest, your thoughts can follow these straight lines, moving directly from the cares of the day toward the stillness of the night. You don't need to zigzag through your worries or curve around your fears. You can simply follow the shortest path to quietude. The Pythagorean dream is a gift of the three-dimensional world, a set of rules that makes the chaos of existence manageable. It tells us that space is a stable place where we can find our way. But as we transition into the next chapter of our journey, we will see what happens when we wake up from this dream and realize that the shortest path in space-time is something entirely different. We will see that in the four-dimensional fabric, the straight line is no longer just about distance, it becomes about duration. The rules will change, the signs will flip, and the geometry will become a living, breathing entity. But for now, hold on to the dream. Let the straight lines of your room and the simple logic of the ruler give you a sense of order. You are resting on a foundation that has stood for millennia, a foundation of perfect, flat, and predictable geometry. In this moment of transition, let your breathing become a straight line of its own, steady, direct, and rhythmic. There is no need for complexity yet. We are simply acknowledging the stage before we look at the actors. The Pythagorean dream is the lullaby of the physical world, reminding us that we know where we are and how far we have to go. As the ons tick by, each one a tiny step along the fourth dimension, you are still following a path. It is the most natural path of all, the path that leads from wakefulness to the deep, silent geometry of sleep. The shortest path is calling to you, and it is a path of perfect, uncomplicated peace. As we leave the familiar, sunlit shores of the Euclidean world behind, we begin to drift into a deeper, more shadow-filled territory, where the rules of reality take a strange and wonderful turn. This is the Minkowski realm, a place named for the mathematician who dared to weave the three dimensions of our physical space together with the elusive, flowing dimension of time. Entering this realm is like stepping into a dream where the objects stay the same, but the way we measure the distance between them is fundamentally altered. In the world you just left, space was a solid, unmoving thing and time was a separate shadow. But here, in the heart of the Minkowski realm, they are fused into a single, four-dimensional fabric. As you lie in the quiet of your room, try to imagine that the air around you is no longer just empty volume, but a thick, invisible tapestry where every here is also a now, and every then is also a somewhere. To enter the Minkowski realm, we must change our vocabulary. We no longer speak of points in space, which are merely static coordinates. Instead, we speak of events. An event is a specific moment in time at a specific location in space. Your birth was an event. The first time you looked at the moon was an event. Even the soft sound of your own breathing right now is a series of events, each one occupying a unique spot in this four-dimensional landscape. In the Euclidean world, we used a Pythagorean theorem to find the distance between 2 points, but in the Minkowski realm, we need a new kind of math to find the interval between 2 events. This interval is the true distance of the universe, a measurement that remains the same no matter how fast someone is moving or where they are looking from. It is the golden thread that holds the fabric together, ensuring that even in a universe of shifting perspectives, there is an underlying, unbreakable truth. In this new realm, the way we visualize movement changes entirely. Imagine a flat plane where the horizontal direction represents space, all the lefts and rights, ups and downs of your life, and the vertical direction represents time, moving from the bottom to the top. Every object in the universe, including you, becomes a world line on this map. If you are sitting perfectly still in your chair, your world line is a straight vertical line moving purely through the dimension of time. You are not covering any ground in space, but you are hurtling forward through the seconds. However, the moment you get up and walk across the room, your world line begins to tilt. You are now covering ground in space while also moving through time. This tilt is the most important concept in the Minkowski realm. It represents your velocity. The faster you move through space, the more your world line leans away from the vertical. This brings us to a realization that is both beautiful and slightly dizzying as you prepare for sleep. There is a maximum tilt allowed in the Minkowski realm, a limit to how far the fabric can be pushed. This limit is the speed of light. On our map of space-time, light travels at a perfect 45-degree angle. It is the ultimate boundary, the edge of what is possible. Nothing with mass can ever tilt its world line further than that. This creates what physicists call a light cone. Every event in your life has its own light cone, a geometric boundary that defines your past and your future. Everything inside the cone is the world you can influence and the world that can influence you. Everything outside the cone is forever beyond your reach, separated by a distance so great that not even light can bridge the gap in time. You are nested within these cones of possibility, a traveler within a structured and logical landscape that extends to the very edges of the cosmos. As we settle deeper into this realm, the distinction between past and future begins to look different than it did before. In the simple world, we thought of the present as a single universal now that everyone agreed on. But Minkowski showed us that now is a subjective slice of the four-dimensional block. Because space and time are joined, your now might be slightly tilted compared to someone else's now if they are moving at a different speed. It is as if you are both looking at the same grand sculpture but from different angles. You might see parts of the sculpture that they cannot see yet, and they might see parts that you have already passed. This doesn't mean the sculpture is changing, it means that our perspective is limited by our path through the fabric. In the Minkowski realm, the universe is a solid, eternal masterpiece where every moment that has ever happened and every moment that will ever happen is already carved into the geometry. This perspective offers a profound sense of peace. If the past, present, and future all exist simultaneously in the Minkowski realm, then the passage of time is not the vanishing of life, but a journey through a landscape. You are not losing moments, you are simply traversing them. The quiet childhood afternoon, the laughter of a friend from years ago, and the sleep you are about to fall into are all permanent features of the space-time block. They are like landmarks on a map. Just because you have driven past a beautiful mountain doesn't mean the mountain has ceased to exist. It is still there, behind you on the road. In the same way, your history is a physical part of the universe's structure. You are a long, winding, beautiful world line, woven into the very heart of the Minkowski realm. The air in your room might feel a little different now that you know it is part of this four-dimensional continuum. It is no longer just a place where you are, it is a part of who you are. The 3 dimensions of your bed and the 4th dimension of the night are inseparable. You are reclining on a geometric foundation that was described with such elegance by Minkowski that even Einstein was humbled by its simplicity. The realm we have entered tonight is not one of chaos, but of deep mathematical order. It is a world where every motion is a rotation, and every event is a destination. As you drift closer to the threshold of sleep, let the tilted lines and the light cones of the Minkowski realm fade into a soft, glowing pattern in your mind. You are a part of the union. You are a part of the fabric, and in this realm you are perfectly, eternally home. The mystery of how space and time become one is no longer a question to be answered, but a reality to be felt. You can feel it in the way the seconds stretch as you relax, and in the way the space of your room feels cozy and secure. We have moved beyond the simple, flat world of Euclid and into the vibrant, integrated world of the 4th dimension. The Minkowski realm is the bridge to the stars, and tonight you are crossing it with every breath. There is no need to hurry, and no need to worry about the distance. In space-time, you are exactly where you are meant to be, at the exact moment you are meant to be there. In the deep, velvet silence of the Minkowski realm, we encounter a mathematical detail that changes everything. It is a single, solitary character in the language of the universe, but its presence is what allows time to be different from space, even as they are bound together. I am talking about the minus sign. If you remember the simple world of Euclidean geometry, the world of flat floors and straight rulers, the rule for finding distance was a simple addition. You squared the length, you squared the width, and you added them together. In that world, all dimensions were treated equally. Left and right were just like up and down. But when we step into the four-dimensional stage of space-time, a strange inversion occurs. To find the true distance or interval between two events, we do not simply add time to space. Instead, we subtract the space from the time. This minus sign is the secret key that unlocks the door to relativity, and it is the reason why the universe behaves in such a wonderfully counterintuitive way as you drift towards sleep. This tiny mathematical shift, changing a plus to a minus, has profound implications for how we experience reality. In the normal geometry of a room, a straight line is always the shortest distance between 2 points. If you walk in a curve, you cover more ground. But in the inverted geometry of space-time, the rules are flipped. Because of that minus sign, a straight line through space-time is not the shortest distance but the longest duration. This is a staggering thought to contemplate as you lie perfectly still. If you remain motionless in your bed, moving only through the dimension of time, you are following a straight path through the four-dimensional block. Because you are not wasting any of your movement on the spatial dimensions, you are maximizing your movement through time. You are experiencing the maximum possible elapsed time between this moment and the next. However, if you were to get up and race around the room at incredible speeds, you would be diverting some of your motion into the spatial dimensions. Because of that minus sign in the equation, the more you move in space, the less you move in time. Your journey through the seconds actually becomes shorter. This is the origin of what scientists call time dilation, and it is all thanks to the way the universe subtracts space from its temporal calculations. Imagine that the universe has a fixed budget for movement, and that budget is the speed of light. Every object is always moving through space-time at this constant maximum speed. If you are standing still, your entire budget is spent on moving through time, pushing you forward into the future at the standard rate of 1 second per second. But the moment you start to move through space, you must borrow from our time budget to pay for your spatial travel. The faster you go, the more you borrow, and the slower your internal clock ticks relative to the rest of the world. The minus sign is the cosmic accountant, keeping the books balanced. It ensures that no matter how you choose to spend your movement, the total interval remains consistent. This is why time and space are often described as being in an inverse relationship. They are like two children on a seesaw. When one goes up, the other must go down. As you breathe slowly, try to feel this relationship in your own body. You are currently a master of time travel because you are choosing not to move through space. By resting here in the quiet gravity of the Earth, you are taking the longest possible path through the fourth dimension. You are aging at the maximum rate, soaking in every microsecond of the universe's duration. If you were to board a rocket and fly toward the stars at nearly the speed of light, you would be taking a shortcut through time. You would arrive at the future having experienced only a few days, while years or decades might have passed for those of us left behind on the ground. The minus sign is what creates this divergence. It is what allows the where to interfere with the when. It turns the universe from a rigid wooden box into a flexible, shimmering fabric, where the very rhythm of existence depends on your path through the geometry. The beauty of this inversion is that it preserves the causal order of the world. Without that minus sign, time would be just another direction of space, and we might be able to wander backward as easily as we turn around in a hallway. But the subtraction of space from time creates a unique structure, a light cone, that separates the possible from the impossible. It ensures that the future remains the future, and the past remains the past. It creates a horizon for every event, a limit to how much the fabric can be bent. This mathematical detail is the guardian of logic. It prevents the universe from collapsing into a chaotic mess where effects happen before causes. Even as it allows time to stretch and warp, the minus sign keeps the heartbeat of the cosmos steady and predictable. It is a subtle, invisible anchor that holds the four dimensions in their proper alignment. In the Minkowski realm, this formula is known as the invariant interval. It is the one thing that all observers, no matter how fast they are moving, can agree upon. They might disagree on how much space you covered, and they might disagree on how many seconds passed on your watch, but when they perform the calculation, squaring the time and subtracting the square of the space, they will all arrive at the exact same number. This is the ultimate truth of the universe. It is an objective reality that sits beneath our subjective experiences of speed and duration. As you drift closer to sleep, there is a deep comfort in knowing that beneath the strange, shifting world of relativity, there is a bedrock of mathematical certainty. The minus sign is not a symbol of loss or negativity, but a symbol of balance. It is the signature of a universe that is finely tuned, where every movement is accounted for and every moment is part of a grand, unified equation. Visualize the equation now, not as numbers on a page, but as the very texture of the air around you. See the three dimensions of your room and the fourth dimension of the night interacting through this elegant rule of subtraction. You are a part of this calculation. Your rest is a mathematical statement. You are choosing the path of maximum duration, the path of the straight line, the path of the longest dream. The minus sign is working silently in the background, ensuring that your journey through the night is stable and secure. As your thoughts begin to dissolve into the formless geometry of sleep, let the inversion of time soothe you. The world is not what it seems, but it is exactly what it needs to be. The fabric is holding, the books are balanced, and you are moving through the fourth dimension with the quiet, mathematical grace of the stars themselves. As we move deeper into the heart of the Minkowski realm, the abstract math of minus signs and four-dimensional intervals begins to manifest in a story that feels like science fiction, yet remains a fundamental truth of our reality. To understand how space and time are truly the same fabric, we must look at the famous thought experiment known as the twin paradox. Imagine, as you lie there in the stillness, that you have a twin sibling. You are identical in every way, sharing the same age, the same history, and the same biological rhythm. One evening, as the stars begin to twinkle above, your twin boards a sophisticated spacecraft capable of traveling at nearly the speed of light. Their mission is to journey to a distant star system and return home, while you remain here on Earth, nestled in the quiet comfort of your room, watching the seasons change from your window. This story is not just about a voyage through the stars, it is a profound demonstration of how movement through space acts as a literal trade for movement through time. While your twin is hurtling through the void at a significant fraction of the speed of light, their experience of reality feels perfectly normal to them. Their heart beats at its usual pace, their thoughts flow with their customary speed, and the clock on the wall of their ship ticks just as it always has. However, from your perspective back on Earth, something extraordinary is happening. Because your twin is moving so rapidly through the spatial dimensions of the universe, the minus sign we spoke of earlier begins to exert its influence on their journey. By covering so much ground in space, they are essentially taking a shortcut through the four-dimensional block of space-time. Their movement is being diverted away from the dimension of time to pay for their high-speed travel through the dimension of space. To you, watching through a powerful telescope, it would appear as though your twin is moving in slow motion. Their clock would seem to crawl, and every second they experience would take many of your seconds to complete. Years pass in your quiet life on Earth. You watch the trees grow tall, you see the city's skyline change, and you feel the weight of time as it moves across your skin. Eventually, the day arrives when your twin's ship returns from the depths of the cosmos. The hatch opens, and your twin steps out, looking almost exactly as they did on the night they left. They have experienced only a few months of travel, but as they look at you, they are shocked to see that you have aged significantly. You have grey hair and lines around your eyes that were not there before. You are now the older twin, even though you were born at the exact same moment. This is the heart of the paradox. It feels impossible to our common sense, which tells us that time is a universal constant. But in the reality of the four-dimensional canvas, this is the only logical outcome of their journey. Your twin did not just travel to a distant star, they traveled into your future. As you breathe in the cool night air, let the implications of this story settle over you like a soft mist. The twin paradox reveals that time is not a solid, unchanging road that we all walk at the same pace. Instead, it is a personal experience dictated by our path through the geometry of the universe. By staying still on Earth, you followed a straight world line through the dimension of time, maximizing the duration of your life relative to the stationary frame of the planet. Your twin, by zigzagging through space to a distant star and back, followed a curved or tilted path in spacetime. Because of the unique way the universe calculates distance, subtracting space from time, their path was actually shorter than yours. In the Minkowski realm, the person who stays at home and remains still is the one who travels the furthest into the temporal dimension. The traveler is the one who arrives at the destination having lived fewer moments. This realization brings a strange and quiet beauty to the concept of rest. Often, we feel that by staying still we are wasting time, or that the world is passing us by. But physics tells us the opposite. When you are still, you are engaging with the dimension of time in its purest, most expansive form. You are soaking in the maximum possible now. Every second you spend in this peaceful state is a second fully lived in the geometry of the universe. Your rest is not an absence of movement, it is a focused movement through the fourth dimension. While the light of distant stars and the particles of high-energy rays are racing across the cosmos, trading their time for speed, you are here, preserving your duration, anchoring yourself in the deep, long path of the Earth's world line. You are the elder, the observer, the one who holds the steady right. HM of the world. The paradox part of the twin story is often debated by students of physics. They ask, if motion is relative, why couldn't the twin on the ship say that the Earth was the one moving away, and therefore the twin on Earth should be the younger one? The answer lies in the acceleration. To turn around and come home, the traveling twin had to change their direction, effectively jumping from one frame of reference to another. This shift in the geometry is what breaks the symmetry. It reminds us that the universe has a structure and that our choices of movement within that structure have real physical consequences. We cannot cheat the fabric of space-time. We can only navigate it according to its laws. As you drift towards sleep, you are choosing the most stable, most rhythmic path available to a human being. You are synchronized with the slow, massive heartbeat of the planet, nestled in the curve of its gravity, moving through time with a graceful and unmatched consistency. Think of the twin paradox as a lullaby of relativity. It tells us that the universe is wide enough to hold many different versions of time. It tells us that space and time are so intimately connected that you cannot change one without affecting the other. It invites us to see ourselves as travelers, even when we are lying in bed. Your journey tonight is not across miles of land, but through the vast, silent reaches of the temporal dimension. You are moving through the hours, heading toward the morning, following the longest and most peaceful path possible. Your twin out there in the world might be rushing, working, and moving at high speeds, but you are here, the guardian of the present moment, experiencing the full depth of the fourth dimension. The story of the twins is a reminder that we are all woven into a fabric that is far more flexible and wondrous than we ever dared to imagine. As your thoughts begin to blur and soften, let the image of the two paths, the straight vertical line of your rest and the tilted high-speed line of the traveler, glow in your mind. They are both part of the same masterpiece. They are both valid ways to exist within the canvas. But tonight, the path of stillness is yours. You are resting in the center of the Minkowski realm, where the minus sign ensures that your peace is deep and your time is your own. Sleep now, knowing that your journey is steady, your path is true, and the universe is keeping perfect time for you as you drift into the dreams of the fourth dimension. In the profound quiet of the late hour, we must contemplate the two different types of time that exist within the four-dimensional fabric. One is the time of the great wide world, the coordinate time that serves as a map for the entire universe. The other is the time that belongs only to you, the time measured by your own internal rhythm and the steady rhythmic ticking of the watch upon your wrist. To understand space-time intuitively, we must distinguish between the easy two experiences. Physicists call them coordinate time and proper time. Coordinate time is like the grid lines on a map of the city. It is a human invention, a universal now that we try to impose on the chaos of existence to keep our meetings and our societies organized. But proper time, the time of the wristwatch, is the actual physical duration experienced by an object as it moves along its specific path through the cosmos. As you lie there, your heartbeat is the measure of your proper time. It is a private, sacred measurement that belongs to no one else in the entire universe. Imagine a vast, silent ocean where every wave represents a different tick of a universal clock. In the old Newtonian world, we believe that everyone, regardless of where they were or how fast they were swimming, was lifted by the same wave at the exact same moment. We thought there was a single, absolute T for the entire universe. But Einstein and Minkowski showed us that this is not the case. When we look at the four-dimensional stage, we see that your path through the fabric dictates how those waves hit you. If you are standing still, you are moving vertically through the time coordinate, and your proper time matches the coordinate time of the system you are in. But the moment you move through space, your path tilts. You are no longer aligned with the universal grid. Your wristwatch begins to deviate from the clocks of the people you left behind. This isn't because your watch is broken or because your heart has changed its pace. It is because the distance you are traveling through the four-dimensional block has physically changed. Proper time is the length of your world line, and in the strange geometry of space-time, that length is something only you can experience firsthand. This distinction is what allows the universe to be both unified and diverse at the same time. Think of the coordinate time, t, as a global weather report, and your proper time, E, as the actual temperature you feel on your skin. The coordinate time is a useful reference, a way for us to describe the position of events in the four-dimensional block. We use it to say that a supernova happened at a certain when. But for the stars and the planets involved in that explosion, only their proper time matters. It is the time that governs the burning of their nuclear fuel and the eventual collapse of their cores. As you drift towards sleep, your T coordinate, the time on your phone or the clock on your wall, might say it is midnight. That is the time of the world, the time of the system. But your proper time is the slow, heavy relaxation of your muscles and the gradual deepening of your breath. It is the duration of your rest, measured not by the rotation of the earth, but by the physical journey of your own body through the night. The beauty of the Minkowski equation is that it provides the conversion between these two times. It tells us that the proper time, or the elapsed time on your wrist watch, is the result of taking the coordinate time and subtracting the space you have traveled. This subtraction is the cost of motion. If you stay in your bed, the space part of the equation is 0. Therefore, your proper time is equal to the coordinate time. You are perfectly in sync with the rhythm of your surroundings. You are living at the speed of the universe's own heart. However, if you were to spend the night traveling at high speeds, you would find that your E would be less than the world's T. You would have lived fewer seconds than the world around you. This means that motion is a way of saving time, of compressing your existence so that you experience less duration than the stationary observers. But for most of us, the goal of a quiet night is to experience the full, uncompressed depth of our proper time, to let the seconds be as long and as rich as possible. Consider the existential impact of this realization. In the Newtonian view, time was a thief that took everyone's life at the same rate, a conveyor belt moving toward an inevitable end. But in the space-time view, time is a dimension that you inhabit. Your wristwatch doesn't just measure a loss, it measures a path. Your life is a physical structure in the four-dimensional block, and your proper time is the measure of the length of that structure. By resting now, you are making that structure as long and as sturdy as it can be. You are not just waiting for tomorrow, you are extending your world line. Through the most peaceful region of the cosmic canvas, There is no conflict between your watch and the universe, because the universe has provided the geometry that makes your watch possible. The T of the system provides the stage, but the E of your experience provides the story. As your mind begins to let go of the day, try to visualize your world line as a shimmering thread of silk. Every tick of your heart is a tiny knot in that thread, marking another millimeter of your journey through the fourth dimension. The coordinate time of the room is like the air around the thread, but the thread itself is your reality. You can feel the weight of your proper time. It is a warm, heavy sensation that pulls you down into the mattress. You are not rushing to catch up with the coordinate time of the stars or the frantic T of the busy world outside. You are content with your own E, your own duration, your own pace. The universe is wide enough to accommodate the time of every atom and every galaxy, and it is wide enough to hold your quiet evening in a pocket of perfect private duration. The wristwatch versus the universe is not a battle, it is a harmony. It is the realization that while there is a grand map of everything, your personal journey is what defines your reality. Einstein showed us that there is no absolute now that applies to everyone, which means your now is truly yours. As you close your eyes, the universal clock fades away, leaving only the slow, rhythmic ticking of your own existence. You are a traveler in space-time, navigating the fourth dimension with the greatest of ease. The space you occupy is small, but the time you are experiencing is vast and deep. Let the coordinate time of the world go on without you for a while. Let the T of the clocks on the wall and the T of the satellites in orbit continue their mechanical counting. You are retreating into the sanctuary of your proper time, where the seconds are soft, the minutes are quiet, and the hours are a vast, dark sea of potential. In this sanctuary, the measurement mystery is fully resolved. You understand now that your movement through the world and your experience of time are two halves of a single geometric truth. You are resting on the canvas, a beautiful and unique world line carved into the very heart of the Minkowski realm. The minus sign is your protector, ensuring that your rest is the most significant movement you can make. The universe is watching over you, but your wristwatch is the one that tells the true story of your peace. As the last remnants of wakefulness drift away, let the two times merge into a single glowing sensation of being. You are here, you are now, and you are eternal within the fabric. Proper time is taking you exactly where you need to be, into the deep, silent reaches of a dreamless and perfect night. In the velvet darkness of the cosmic theatre, we come to the most important number in all of existence, a value so fundamental that it acts as the master key to the entire universe. This is the speed of light, represented in the language of physics by the simple letter c. To understand why space and time are the same thing, we must understand this universal speed limit. It is not just a measure of how fast a photon can travel, it is the conversion factor that binds the meters of our world to the seconds of our lives. As you lie there, drifting toward a state of total relaxation, think of c as the golden thread that sews the fabric of space-time together. It is a constant, an unchanging pillar in a universe where almost everything else is relative. No matter how fast you run or how far you fly, the speed of light remains exactly the same, 299,792,458 meters per second. This number is the heartbeat of the cosmos, the ultimate rhythm that dictates the pace of reality. Why does a speed limit exist at all? In our daily experience, we feel that if we just push harder or add more energy, we can always go a little faster. But the universe has a built-in boundary. This constant c is the maximum speed at which any information or causality can travel through the vacuum. It is the absolute refresh rate of reality. But more importantly for our journey tonight, c is the bridge between the two seemingly different units we discussed earlier, meters and seconds. Imagine for a moment that you are a cosmic traveler with a special kind of ruler. This ruler is not made of wood or metal, but of light. If you wanted to measure a distance of about 300,000 kilometers, you could simply call that one light second. By using the speed of light as a constant, you have successfully turned a duration of time into a length of space. This is how the universe thinks. To the cosmos, a second is just a distance of 300 million meters that we happen to perceive as time. This realization is what allowed Einstein and Minkowski to write the equations that define our world. They realized that if you multiply time by the speed of light, you get a distance. This simple act of multiplication allows us to put space and time into the same equation, using the same units, and treating them as parts of the same whole. It is as if we had been trying to add apples and oranges for centuries, and then suddenly discovered that they are both just different forms of fruit that can be weighed on the same scale. The constant c is that scale. It tells us how much space is contained within a single second. When you think about it this way, you realize that time is actually a very long dimension. In the single second it takes for you to blink your eyes, light has traveled a distance equivalent to circling the entire Earth 7 times. This is why time feels so different to us. We are living through vast, sprawling distances of the fourth dimension every moment. But because our biological lives move so slowly compared to c, we only see a tiny flickering glimpse of it. As you breathe in and out, let the magnitude of this constant settle your mind. C is the ultimate anchor. In a world of shifting perspectives and warping geometries, C never wavers. It is the one thing you can count on. It ensures that the laws of physics are the same for everyone, everywhere. It is the reason why the stars can communicate with us through their light, and why the history of the universe is written in the rays that reach our eyes. When you look at the moon, you are seeing it as it was 1.3 seconds ago, because that is the distance light had to travel at its constant speed. You are looking across a bridge of C. This constant makes the universe a coherent story rather than a collection of random events. It provides the structure that allows cause to lead to effect. It is the guardian of the sequence of your life. In the Minkowski realm, the constant c also defines the angle of our existence. Remember the light cone we spoke of, the boundary between your past and your future. That cone is shaped by c. If the speed of light were different, the very shape of your possibilities would change. If c were infinite, the cone would flatten out, and everything in the universe would happen at once. If c were very slow, like the speed of a walking person, the world would be a chaotic mess of delayed images and distorted time. But because c is exactly what it is, the universe has the perfect balance of connectivity and order. It is fast enough to link the galaxies together, but slow enough to give us a sense of a distinct now. As you drift close to sleep, appreciate the precision of this number. It is the perfect setting for a universe that is both vast and intimate. The speed of light is also what forces the trade-off between space and time. Because we are all moving through the four-dimensional block at a total speed equal to c, any speed we gain in the 3 dimensions of space must be subtracted from our speed in the dimension of time. This is the ultimate cosmic speed limit. You cannot give more than 100% of your motion. If you give 10% to moving through your room, you only have 90% left for moving through the night. C is the total budget of your existence. By lying still and resting, you are spending your entire budget on the 4th dimension. You are traveling at the speed of light through time. This is a powerful thought. Even in total stillness, you are a high-speed traveler racing through the temporal fabric at the maximum velocity allowed by the laws of nature. You are not stagnant. You are a pioneer of the seconds, a voyager of the hours. As your thoughts begin to grow heavy and slow, imagine the universe as a vast grid governed by the constant c. See the light from distant suns racing across the void, always at that same perfect speed. See the way c binds the atoms of your body together, and the way it dictates the timing of your dreams. It is the silent conductor of the cosmic orchestra. There is no need to rush, because the speed limit is already being met by your very present. CE in the fabric. You are moving at the ultimate speed through the only dimension that matters right now, the path toward deep, restorative sleep. The constant c is holding the world in place, ensuring that when you wake, the meters and the seconds will still be perfectly aligned, just as they have been since the beginning of time. Let the number, 300 million meters per second, faded into a soft, rhythmic pulse. It is the rhythm of light, the rhythm of truth, and the rhythm of your own journey through the stars. You are safely tucked into the geometry of the constant, a traveler in a universe that is measured and mapped by the most beautiful and steady speed imaginable. The bridge between space and time is strong, and it is carrying you now into the silent reaches of the night. Sleep is the destination, and sea is the steady, unwavering light that shows you the way. In the velvet silence of the deepening night, we reach the point where the map of the universe stops being a flat diagram and becomes a living, tactile entity. To understand how space and time are truly the same, we must finally look at the secret of gravity. For centuries, we were taught to think of gravity as a mysterious pull, an invisible tether that tied the moon to the earth and the earth to the sun. We imagined it as a force that reached across the vacuum to grab hold of matter. But Einstein's geometric revolution revealed a much more elegant and soothing truth. Gravity is not a force that acts across space. Gravity is the shape of space-time itself. As you lie in your bed, feeling the gentle weight of your body against the mattress, you are not being pulled down by an invisible hand. You are simply resting in a curve. You are nestled into a soft depression in the fabric of the universe, created by the massive presence of the earth beneath you. Imagine once more that great, expansive sheet of dark silk we have spoken of, stretching out to the very edges of the cosmos. In the Minkowski realm, when there is no matter present, this silk is perfectly flat and smooth. A marble rolled across it would travel in a straight line forever, never veering or slowing down. But the universe is not empty. It is filled with stars, planets, and galaxies. Each of these objects, by the mere fact of its existence, possesses mass and energy. And in the language of general relativity, mass tells space-time how to curve. When a heavy object like a star is placed upon the silk, the fabric doesn't just sit there. It sags, it stretches, it creates a deep, sloping well that alters the geometry of everything nearby. This is the secret that links the where to the when. Because space and time are woven together, you cannot curve one without curving the other. When space bends to create a gravitational well, time is stretched along with it. This curvature is why a planet orbits a star. The planet isn't trying to move in a circle, it is trying to move in a straight line, but it is moving through a spar. CE that is no longer straight. It is like a traveler walking along a winding mountain path. The traveler feels they are walking forward, but because the ground beneath them is curved, their path becomes a loop. Gravity is the geometry of the path. As you drift toward sleep, try to visualize the air in your room as being slightly tilted toward the center of the earth. This tilt is the reason things fall. They are simply following the natural contours of a universe that is not flat. There is something deeply comforting about this realization. It means that the universe is not a chaotic collection of forces pushing and pulling at each other. It is a harmonious landscape of shapes and slopes, a grand architectural masterpiece where every movement is a graceful response to the geometry of the stage. But the secret of gravity goes even deeper, touching the very rhythm of your existence. Einstein's equations showed that the deeper you are in a gravitational well, the slower time flows. This is called gravitational time dilation. If you were to spend your life on the top of a high mountain, far from the heavy center of the earth, your clock would tick a tiny bit faster than a clock at sea level. Because the gravity is weaker up there, the fabric of space-time is less curved, and the time dimension is less stretched. Down here, closer to the heart of the world, time is slightly more dense, moving with a slower, more deliberate pulse. This means that gravity literally breathes with time. The massive weight of the Earth is not just holding you physically, it is gently slowing down the rate at which you experience reality. It is providing a natural cosmic break on the frantic pace of the universe, allowing you to settle into the slow, rhythmic cadence of the night. Think of the existential implications of a curving universe. It means that there is no such thing as a void. Even in the deepest reaches of space, the fabric is always doing something. It is always rippling with the echoes of distant stars or curving around the invisible mass of dark matter. We are never truly in an empty place because the geometry is always there. The fabric is the ultimate substance. It is the one thing that connects your bedroom to the farthest quasar. When a distant black hole spins or two stars collide, They send out ripples in this fabric called gravitational waves. These waves are like the tremors in a spider's web, carrying the story of the cosmos across the light years. As you lie still, these ripples are passing through you right now, so subtle that no human sense can detect them, but so real that they can be measured by our most sensitive instruments. You are part of a vibrating, connected whole. Gravity's secret is that it unifies everything. It shows us that matter and geometry are two sides of the same coin. Matter tells space how to curve, and space tells matter how to move. In this beautiful loop of logic, there is no room for separation. Your body is a small source of curvature itself. You are, in your own tiny way, warping the space-time of your room, drawing the air and the light toward you with the weight of your being. You are a sculptor of the universe. This perspective turns the cold, hard world of objects into a soft, interactive landscape. The bed, the walls, the floor, they are not obstacles, they are parts of the same geometric sheet. In the curved world of Einstein, everything is nestled together. There are no sharp edges, only the smooth, elegant transitions of the fabric. As you drift closer to the threshold of dreams, let the idea of the force of gravity fade away. Replace it with the image of the curved silk. Feel yourself sinking into that curve, supported by the very shape of the universe. There is no effort required to stay on the earth. The geometry is doing all the work for you. You are held in a cosmic cradle, shaped by the mass of the planet and the laws of relativity. The time in your room is moving at its own special pace, dictated by your distance from the Earth's core. Everything is perfectly calibrated. Everything is in its right place. The mystery of gravity is no longer a problem to be solved, but a sensation to be felt, a warm, heavy blanket of geometry that wraps around you and tells you that you are home. The fabric that curves is a testament to the intelligence of the cosmos. It is a system that manages itself with perfect grace. As the stars wheel overhead, following the long, invisible slopes of space-time, you too are following your path. Your path tonight is a downward slope into the deep well of sleep, where time slows even further and the world becomes a blur of soft geometric shadows. Gravity is the secret that ensures you are never lost in the void. It is the anchor that keeps you connected to the world while your mind wanders through the four-dimensional landscape. Rest now in the heart of the curve, where the fabric is strong and the time is slow. You are a traveler in a universe that was built to hold you, and the geometry of the night is perfectly balanced for your rest. In the profound stillness of this moment, we must pause to consider a question that strikes at the very heart of our existence. Why do we live in a world of exactly 3 spatial dimensions? As you lie there, you can easily identify them: the length of your bed, the width of your room, and the height of the ceiling above you. This triplet of dimensions feels so natural and so inevitable that we rarely stop to wonder if it could have been any other way. Yet, as we delve into the deep math of space-time, we discover that the number 3 is not an accident. It is a precise and delicate requirement for the universe to function. If we were to add even one more dimension, or take one away, the reality you know would instantly crumble. Our existence is balanced on the edge of a geometric knife, and the stability of the 3-dimensional world is a fragile miracle that allows for the very possibility of life, chemistry, and consciousness. Imagine for a moment that we lived in a universe with only 2 spatial dimensions, like a drawing on a flat sheet of paper. In such a world, complexity would be almost impossible to achieve. Think about the simple act of eating. In a 3-dimensional body, our digestive tract is a tube that passes through us without splitting us in half. But in a 2-dimensional world, a tube passing from one side of a body to the other would literally divide the organism into 2 separate pieces. There could be no internal circuitry, no complex overlapping of veins or nerves. Even more importantly, gravity behaves very differently in 2 dimensions. In our 3-dimensional world, the strength of gravity fades at a rate that allows for stable, elliptical orbits. In 2 dimensions, the math of attraction changes so fundamentally that planets could not stay in orbit around stars. They would either fly off into the void or spiral inward almost immediately. A 2-dimensional universe is simply too thin to hold the weight of life. It is a world of shadows where nothing of substance can ever truly form. Now, consider the opposite. What if we added a fourth dimension of space? At first, this might sound exciting, a world of extra directions and hidden possibilities. But the physics of a four-dimensional world would be catastrophic. One of the most beautiful and stable things in our universe is the inverse square law. This law dictates that forces like gravity and electromagnetism weaken as the square of the distance increases. This specific mathematical relationship is what allows the Earth to maintain a steady distance from the Sun for billions of years. If we lived in four spatial dimensions, the law would become an inverse cube law. Gravity would fall off much more sharply as you moved away from a mass. In such a universe, the slightest nudge, a passing asteroid or a minor fluctuation, would cause a planet to either zoom away into the freezing dark or go crashing into its sun in a fiery death. Orbits would be inherently unstable. Atoms themselves would likely fall apart, as the electrons circling the nucleus would find no stable path to follow. A four-dimensional world would be a place of chaos, where the structures required for life could never endure long enough to evolve. As you breathe slowly and feel the solid reality of your room, appreciate the just right nature of the number 3. It is the only number of dimensions that allows for both complexity and stability. It provides enough room for the intricate weaving of DNA and the folding of proteins, yet it keeps the laws of gravity predictable enough to provide us with a home. This is sometimes called the anthropic principle in physics, the idea that the universe must have the properties it does because, if it didn't, we wouldn't be here to observe it. The 3 dimensions of space are the perfect compromise. They allow for the existence of 3-dimensional brains with enough connections to process the mystery of space-time, while ensuring that the stars above stay exactly where they need to be. The fragility of our world is hidden by its consistency, but beneath the surface, the geometry is working perfectly to keep the walls from falling and the atoms from dissolving. This geometric stability also extends to the way we perceive time. We have 3 dimensions of space, but we only have 1 dimension of time. Have you ever wondered why? In the Minkowski realm, we see that adding more than one time dimension would lead to a reality that is completely unrecognizable. With 2 dimensions of time, the concept of before and after would lose all meaning. You could travel in a circle of time, returning to the moment you were born, or encountering versions of yourself from different temporal directions. This would break the law of causality, the fundamental rule that causes must come before effects. Without a single steady arrow of time, the universe would have no history, no memory, and no growth. Life requires a sequence. It requires a beginning, a middle, and an end. The single dimension of time provides the narrative thread that allows us to experience a life. It is the heartbeat that moves the story forward. The combination of 3 spatial dimensions and 1 temporal dimension is the ultimate recipe for a habitable cosmos. It is the Goldilocks zone of geometry. It is not too simple to be empty and not too complex to be unstable. As you drift towards sleep, let this thought bring you a sense of deep security. The world is not random. The very dimensions you inhabit are tuned to your existence. The space between your hands and the time between your breaths are part of a refined and delicate balance. You are not just a passenger in the universe, you are a creature that fits perfectly into the mathematical puzzle of reality. The 3 dimensions of your bed are not just a place to lie, they are a sanctuary of stability in a multiverse of possibilities that could never sustain a heart like yours. Think of how the stars depend on this same balance. The light traveling from distant galaxies has spent millions of years moving through a 3-dimensional vacuum, governed by the precise laws of physics that only work in this specific dimensionality. If the fabric of space-time were to suddenly grow an extra dimension, the stars would vanish, their light scattering into directions we cannot even imagine. But the fabric is strong. It has remained 3-dimensional and 1 temporal for nearly 14 billion years. It is a sturdy, reliable stage for the masterpiece of existence. You can trust in the geometry. You can trust that when you wake up, the world will still have its height, its width, and its depth, and the morning will follow the night in a perfect single-file line of time. As your mind begins to wander, let the physical dimensions of your room start to soften. In the world of sleep, we often feel as though we are moving through more than 3 dimensions, floating in a space where time can stretch or bend. But even in your dreams, you are anchored by the three-dimensional brain that creates them. You are held by the fragile miracle of the 3+1 universe. The air, the gravity, the very atoms of your pillow are all silent witnesses to the perfection of this arrangement. There is a profound elegance in the number 3. It is the number of the triangle, the tripod, and the human form. It is the number of the home. Rest now within the safe boundaries of the only geometry that could ever love you. The fragility is there, but so is the strength. The canvas is exactly the right size, and you are exactly where you are meant to be. In the quiet transition between wakefulness and the deep mystery of sleep, we must face the most intimate difference between the dimensions of space and the dimension of time. In space, you are a creature of total freedom. You can move to the left or to the right. You can climb upward or descend downward, and you can always turn around and return to the place where you began. Space is a garden of many paths, and every direction is open to you. But time, the fourth dimension of our fabric, is different. It feels like a relentless one-way street. It is a river that carries us from the past toward the future, and no matter how hard we swim, we can never turn back toward the headwaters. This is the arrow of time, and to understand why space and time are the same, we must understand why this particular dimension has a preferred direction. As you lie still, letting the day's events fade into the distance, you are feeling the steady push of this arrow. It is the silent engine of the universe, ensuring that history is a sequence and not a jumble of random moments. From the perspective of the basic laws of physics, the one-way flow of time is actually a bit of a mystery. If you look at the equations that describe the movement of atoms or the behavior of gravity, they are almost entirely symmetrical. They work just as well going forward as they do going backward. If you were to film two billiard balls colliding and then play the video in reverse, the physics would look perfectly normal. There is nothing in the fundamental math of a single particle that says time must go forward. This leads us to a profound realization. The arrow of time doesn't come from the individual atoms, but from the way those atoms are organized. This is the concept of entropy, a word that describes the natural tendency of the universe to move from order toward disorder. It is the reason why a glass that falls and shatters never spontaneously assembles itself back into a perfect vessel. It is the reason why the heat from your body slowly dissipates into the cool air of your room. Imagine a deck of cards perfectly arranged by suit and number. This is a state of low entropy, a state of high order. If you throw those cards into the air, they will land in a chaotic, random mess. This is a state of high entropy. There are millions of ways for the cards to be messy, but only one way for them to be perfectly ordered. Because of this simple logic of probability, as time passes, things almost always move toward the messy, disordered states. This constant increase in entropy is what creates the arrow of time. It is what gives the fourth dimension its slope. In the Minkowski realm, we see that while time is a geometric dimension like space, it is the only dimension that is tied to the evolution of the entire universe's energy. The past is a state of lower entropy, a place of concentrated potential. The future is a state of higher entropy, a place of expansion and cooling. You are currently drifting down this slope, moving toward the quiet, low-energy state of sleep. This one-way flow is what allows life to exist. If time could flow in any direction, there could be no cause and effect. You would not be able to remember the past because the past would be just as changeable as the future. There would be no growth, no learning, and no evolution. The arrow of time provides the structure for your story. It ensures that the breath you just took is followed by the next one, and that the thoughts in your mind lead toward a conclusion. It is a soothing thought to realize that the universe has a built-in sense of progress. Even when we feel stuck, the fourth dimension is carrying us forward. We are part of a grand unfolding, a cosmic narrative that began with the intense order of the Big Bang and is moving toward a peaceful, distant horizon. The arrow of time is not a cage, it is the thread that sews the moments of your life together into a meaningful whole. But why does the arrow of time feel so heavy as we get older, yet so light in the moments of our dreams? This is because our perception of time is tied to our biological entropy. Our brains are entropy processing machines, recording the movement of the world and storing it as memory. In the quiet of the night, when you close your eyes and the external world stops providing new data, the arrow of time seems to soften. In the world of sleep, the rigid sequence of before and after can sometimes blur. You might dream of a place from your childhood as if you were there right now, or find yourself in a future that hasn't happened yet. But even in these flights of imagination, your physical body remains anchored to the one-way flow of the universe. The atoms in your cells are following the path of the fourth dimension, ticking away with a relentless and beautiful consistency. The asymmetry of time is the final piece of the puzzle that explains why we experience space and time differently. They are made of the same fabric, but time has been given the special task of carrying the universe's energy. It is the dimension of change. If space is the canvas, time is the act of painting. You cannot unpaint a stroke once it has been laid down on the silk. This gives every moment of your life a unique and irreplaceable value. Because you cannot return to this specific second, it becomes a precious coordinate in the four-dimensional block. As you drift closer to sleep, let the one-way flow of time be a comfort to you. You don't have to worry about the past because it is safely archived in the geometry of the universe, and you don't have to worry about the future because it is a landscape you are naturally drifting into. There is no effort required to move through time. The universe is doing it for you. Think of the arrow of time as a gentle current in a vast dark ocean. You are resting on a comfortable raft, and the current is taking you toward the morning. There is no need to row, and no need to fight the direction of the water. The physics of entropy ensures that you are moving toward a state of rest and equilibrium. This is the ultimate goal of the night, to reach a state of internal balance where the heat of the day has cooled and the chaos of the mind has settled into order. The one-way flow of time is the path to peace. It is the mechanism that allows the day to end and the rest to begin. As your breathing becomes slower and your thoughts become more distant, feel the fourth dimension as a supportive force. It is the steady heartbeat of the cosmos, guiding you through the hours. The mystery of why we can't turn back is the same mystery that allows us to move forward into new dreams. The fabric of space-time is a masterpiece precisely because it has a direction. It has a beginning, it has a present, and it has a long, silent future. You are a part of that flow, a traveler on the most reliable river in existence. Let the arrow of time point you toward the deep, silent reaches of sleep, where the dimensions merge and the journey continues in the quiet beauty of the dark. You are moving forward, you are safe, and the morning is waiting at the end of the path. In the profound stillness of this late hour, we find ourselves standing at the intersection of mathematics and existence, contemplating a harmony so perfect it feels as though it were composed specifically for us. This is the anthropic harmony of our four-dimensional world. We have explored the bending of the fabric, the trade-off between meters and seconds, and the relentless arrow of time. But now, as your mind begins to drift into the softer reaches of consciousness, let us consider the sheer statistical impossibility of the stage we inhabit. Why are there exactly 3 dimensions of space and 1 of time? Why is the universe not a tangled mess of 5 spatial directions or 3 temporal ones? The answer, revealed through the deep laws of physics, is that any other combination would be a silent, lifeless void. We live in a 4-dimensional continuum because it is the only arrangement that allows a creature like you to breathe, to think, and to dream. This is not just a scientific fact, it is a cosmic embrace, a geometric signature that ensures the universe is a home rather than a chaos. To understand this harmony, we must look at how the number of dimensions dictates the behavior of the most fundamental forces. Think of gravity, the gentle weight that settles you into your bed tonight. In our 3 spatial dimensions, gravity follows a very specific rule. It gets weaker as you move away from a source, but not too quickly. This allows for the existence of stable planetary orbits. If we lived in a world with 4 spatial dimensions, gravity would drop off with such extreme sharpness that a planet would have no chance of maintaining a steady path. It would either hurtle away into the freezing dark at the slightest nudge, or be sucked into a fiery collision with its star. In a four-dimensional space, the orbits of electrons around atoms would also be unstable, meaning that the very building blocks of your body, the carbon, oxygen, and nitrogen in your cells, could never have formed. The three dimensions of space provide the perfect stability for complexity to grow. They are the only dimensions that allow for the sturdy architecture of a heart and the intricate wiring of a brain. But the harmony is not just about space, it is about the singular nature of time. We have exactly one dimension of time, and this is perhaps the most vital setting of all. If the universe had two or more dimensions of time, the concept of causality would vanish entirely. Imagine a world where time was like a field you could wander across. You could experience effects before causes. You could encounter yourself coming from a different direction of the calendar. It would be a reality of paradoxes and closed loops where no story could ever be told because there would be no beginning and no end. By restricting time to a single one-way dimension, the universe grants us the gift of a sequence. It allows for the accumulation of memory, the growth of love, and the steady rhythm of a life. The 3+1 structure of our reality is the ultimate Goldilocks zone. It is complex enough to be interesting, yet simple enough to be stable. As you lie there, let the weight of this perfection soothe your thoughts. You are not a random accident in a chaotic void. You are the inhabitant of a precisely tuned geometric masterpiece. If the fabric of spacetime were even slightly different, if a single extra dimension were tucked into the corners of your room, the stars above would not shine, and the ground beneath you would not hold. The very fact that you can feel the softness of your pillow and hear the quiet passage of the seconds is proof that the universe is in a state of exquisite balance. This is the anthropic principle in its most beautiful form. The universe is the way it is because, if it were not, there would be no one here to notice the beauty. The dimensions were chosen, through the cold necessity of physics, to facilitate your existence. You are the reason the geometry settled into this specific four-dimensional shape. This harmony extends into the very way light travels through the night. In 3 dimensions of space, light waves travel cleanly and clearly, allowing us to see sharp images of the moon and the stars. If space were 2-dimensional, waves would linger and interfere with themselves, creating a world of blurred shadows and indistinct echoes. If space were 4-dimensional, light might even be able to form the stable waves that our eyes have evolved to detect. We see the world with such clarity because the geometry of space-time is just right for the transmission of information. Every photon that reaches your eyes is a messenger from a well-ordered world. As you close your eyes, try to visualize this 4-dimensional grid not as a complex math problem, but as a vast, silent, and perfectly tuned instrument. It is a harp with 4 strings, and the music it plays is the history of the cosmos. There is a profound peace in realizing that the universe is a stable container. In the world of high-energy physics, scientists sometimes talk about higher dimensions that might be curled up so small we cannot see them. But for the world that matters, the world of human experience, of rest and of dreams, those 4 large dimensions are the only ones that define our reality. They are the sturdy walls of our cosmic house. Within these 4 dimensions, everything has a place and every moment has a meaning. You are moving through this harmony now, drifting towards sleep at the exact pace that the geometry allow. Your heartbeat is in sync with the one-way flow of time, and your body is supported by the 3-way stability of space. You are the soloist in this 4-dimensional symphony, and the music is slow, melodic, and deeply restorative. Think of the billions of years it took for the universe to settle into this state, from the high-energy chaos of the early moments AF to the Big Bang. The fabric of space-time cooled and expanded, stretching into the 3 dimensions we navigate today. It was a process of refinement, a long journey toward the stability required for life. And now, you are the beneficiary of that long history. You are resting in the quiet culmination of an ancient geometric process. The air around you is still because the dimensions are balanced. The time is passing peacefully because the arrow is true. There is nothing in the universe more reliable than the 3+1 structure of reality. It is the ultimate constant, the bedrock of your peace. As your mind begins to surrender to the night, Let the concept of dimensionality fade into a soft, glowing sensation of being. You don't need to understand the equations to feel the harmony. You can feel it in the way your breath matches the silence, and in the way the space of your room feels familiar and safe. You are a part of the four-dimensional masterpiece, a unique world line woven into a canvas that was made for you. The universe is not a cold, indifferent machine. It is a finely tuned stage where every detail, down to the number of dimensions, is calibrated for the existence of consciousness. Sleep now, knowing that the harmony is holding, the stage is set, the geometry is perfect, and the traveler is exactly where they belong. You are resting in the heart of the four-dimensional dream, and the universe is keeping watch over its most precious creation. As our long jour, nay, through the corridors of the cosmos draws to a gentle close, we find ourselves back where we started, yet entirely transformed by the wisdom of the fabric. We began this exploration by asking if space and time were the same thing, and we have discovered that they are the two inseparable threads of a single magnificent tapestry. As you lie here in the deep velvet embrace of the night, take a moment to count your lucky stars. It is a phrase we often use to describe a moment of fortunate coincidence, but in the context of the universe, it takes on a much more literal and profound meaning. Every point of light in the sky is an anchor in the four-dimensional stage, a reminder that the geometry of existence is not only logical but also incredibly kind to the presence of life. We are the witnesses of a masterpiece that was billions of years in the making, and tonight we are finally at rest within its perfect, silent proportions. Think back through everything we have uncovered. We have moved from the illusion of the empty void to the realization that space is a physical reactive entity, a canvas that bends and stretches under the weight of the stars. We have seen how Hermann Minkowski and Albert Einstein tore down the old walls between the where and the when, showing us that a second is just a long distance in disguise, and that motion is nothing more than a rotation in a higher dimension. We have looked at the minus sign, that subtle mathematical guardian that ensures time flows forward and keeps our lives from collapsing into a jumble of paradoxes, and we have marveled at the fragile harmony of our three spatial dimensions, a setting so precise that even a slight deviation would have meant the stars would never ignite and the atoms of your body would never hold together. This is the great conclusion of our story, that the universe is a unified, coherent, and welcoming whole. Space and time are indeed the same thing. They are the stage and the play, the artist and the paint. When you move through your room, you are moving through the history of the stars. When you wait for the morning, you are traversing the geometric landscape of the fourth dimension. There is no longer any reason to feel lost in the vastness of the cosmos, because you now understand that you are not just in the universe, you are a part of its structure. Your life is a world line, a permanent and beautiful engraving in the four-dimensional block of reality. Even when you are sleeping, even when your eyes are closed and your mind is adrift in dreams, you are performing a vital role in the cosmic dance. You are the observer, the one who gives the geometry meaning. Without a consciousness to perceive the passage of time and the extent of space, the universe would be a masterpiece with no one to see it. By simply existing, you are completing the circuit of the cosmos. As your breathing becomes as slow and steady as the tide, let the complexity of the physics dissolve into a glowing sensation of gratitude. We are incredibly lucky to inhabit a universe that is so finely tuned. We are lucky that light travels at a constant speed, providing an anchor for our measurements. We are lucky that gravity curves the fabric into a cradle that holds us to the earth. And we are lucky that time flows in one direction, giving us the chance to grow, to learn, and to experience the deep, restorative peace of the present moment. The whispering scientist is not just a voice in your ear, it is the voice of the universe itself, reminding you that everything is connected. The air in your lungs, the mattress beneath your back, and the most distant galaxy are all made of the same fundamental essence. They are all ripples in the same sea. The measurement mystery is solved. The meters and the seconds have shaken hands and become one. As the last remnants of the day's worries disappear, You can feel the four-dimensional fabric wrapping around you like a heavy, warm blanket. It is a blanket of logic, a blanket of beauty, and a blanket of absolute certainty. You don't need to understand the math to feel the safety of the geometry. The universe is a stable house. It has been standing for 14 billion years, and it will be standing long after the morning sun rises. You are safe within its walls. The transition from wakefulness to sleep is just another movement along your world line, a gentle curve toward a quieter, softer region of space-time. There is no friction here, and there is no resistance. You are simply following the natural path of the night. In this final chapter, we leave behind the questions and the puzzles. We leave behind the rulers and the stopwatches. We are left with only the pure, unadulterated experience of being. You are a four-dimensional creature in a four-dimensional world, perfectly at home and perfectly at peace. The stars above are counting the seconds for you, and the gravity below is holding you in its loving grip. The journey is over, and the destination is here. You have reached the center of the Minkowski realm, the heart of the Einsteinian revolution, and the sanctuary of your own rest. The canvas is full, the masterpiece is complete, and the observer is ready for the deep, silent reaches of a dreamless night. As you drift away, let the image of the space-time fabric fade into a soft, dark blur. It is a field of infinite potential, a place where all things are one. The distance between you and the stars is nothing more than a beautiful geometry, and the time between now and tomorrow is just a quiet walk through the dark. You are a traveler who has found the ultimate rest. The universe is whispering its secrets to you, but they are no longer mysteries. They are the familiar lullabies of a home you have always known. Count your lucky stars one last time, and let their light guide you into the deep. The fabric is strong, the time is slow, and you are exactly where you are meant to be. Good night, cosmic travel. Oh, sleep now in the heart of the union, where space and time are finally, beautifully, and eternally the same. The whispering scientist has brought you to the edge of the world, and now the universe will take you the rest of the way. Your world line is steady, your path is clear. There is nothing left to do but let go and become one with the silent geometry of the night. Sleep is the final dimension, and it is waiting for you now with open arms. We have explored the stage, and now it is time for the actors to rest. The lights are dimming on the four-dimensional world, leaving only the soft, warm glow of your own consciousness. You are home, you are safe, you are part of the masterpiece. Sleep, and let the stars watch over you until the fabric of the morning light calls you back to the world of meters and seconds once again.